So aloha mai kako. My name is Kainoa, hail from, as you guys know, if those of you who were in the discussion before, from Hi'ia, lived here basically all my life, 19 years now, and I also lived in Kalihi, bounced between the two frequently due to ohana kuleana. So have been here for quite some time, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about this concept called Mahi and cultivating abundance. So let me just share screen really quickly. Let's see if I can pull it up. Here it is. Uno momento. Okay. So before I really get into it, I really want to just like start like a grounding process, land acknowledgements for those of you who know like the proper terms or whatever. Yeah, so I'm just gonna do a really quick oli that talks about my place. It's actually oli for Kaneohe, but we share the same mountain, Keahiakohoi, which is the mountain featured here. So I always just switch the name Kaneohe and just replace it with He'ea because we're the best. But yeah, so Gile gile igwe buagia nu lue ule uia ina buai uia uia mela ige gola lava irei halo haui nagola ue ayala kanu kuliae. So mahalo nui for just allowing me to do that, to really ground myself and all of us and our wonderful ahupua'a of He'eia and the beautiful abundance that we really have. So for those of you who, you guys are also in the panel, but I'll kind of show some brief pictures too. And for those who are not sure like where He'eia is, but He'eia is located in the Moku, or larger land division. Won't get into that. It's like a whole nother topic. And it's in the Moku of Ko'olaupoko on the windward side of Oahu. So the southeast Oahu in a way. So this is He'eia. We're very unique. We have a piece of our peninsula, Mokapu, where the military base is. And yeah, so we're here on the windward side. Beautiful. I know Waimanalo likes to own God's country, but long before that, Kaneohe was, and He'eia and all our various other places. So this is another picture of our ahupua'a, what it looks like. Very much follows the Kea'ahala Ridge and does all of these various things, natural features that mark our boundaries. Hoi is actually with an I. I don't know who did this graphic, but yeah, this is our beautiful ahupua'a where Rick Barboza them guys are in Waipau, restoring the lo'ikalo there, taking care of our punavai, our springs, doing reforestation work. I'm up here in Haiku Valley where we're really working to restore forests, build food forests in a way to primarily medicine. I'll talk about that later. And then downstream, there's also families here in Ioleka'a. We have two valleys in our ahupua'a. So our streams connect and eventually go through Hoi, where Kaku'oiwi is, where Uncle Ikaika them work, and they do such amazing work building food forests as well as restoring our traditional lo'ikalo. And then Hi'ile guys are all at the Lokoi'a, and they actually are all partnered with the Hawaii Institute for Marine Biology and the National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency, NOAA. And they're also doing reef restoration work, not necessarily Hile guys, but the Hawaii Institute for Marine Biology. So we're very much a functioning ahupua'a, not only from the mountain to the sea, but including parts of our moana, Kawahao Kamano, which is the name of our ocean. Going into just a little bit more so you guys can sort of visualize it. I wish we could just do this all in person. I always find learning about Aina is better when you're actually in the Aina. But I'm up here in Haiku Valley. So this is Haiku Valley and our view from the tops of the Vau, or the mountain peak areas, the Kuahivi. And this is just like what our beautiful Ili Aina of Haiku looks like. And primarily by these old military structures that were left to us by the military, including the wonderful ugly highway. I'm not a fan of the H3 due to its history. And this is some of the work that we do up in Haiku Valley. So we do a lot of native reforestation, removing the invasive, planting natives, trying to restore the practices of our kupuna. Haiku Valley, like I said on a panel, was once the almost hospital of the Ko'olau. It's abundant with medicine where people used to come gather medicine from Haiku Valley, and they would mix it with the things of the kai, the limu, the seaweed, and really make medicine, because medicine wasn't always just one particular plant. It was a mixture of all of these different things. So we're hoping to bring back the abundance, rehabilitate the valley after its previous years of degradation by the military, when the military occupied those lands for a thing called the Omega Station. Might ring a bell for those of you on Oahu. But we're trying to revitalize it and repurpose it back to the ways of our kupuna. So downstream from us is the wonderful Papahana Ku'ola, where they're restoring all those lo'ikalo, bringing back the abundance there, doing reforestation work, food forests, really taking care of our vai and revitalizing our punavai, our springs. I love drinking from those springs. They're so awesome. And I love the work that Papahana guys are doing. And as we like go down each and every place, we all have something to contribute to the lower parts of our ahupua'a, because it's so important that it's not only like a negative connotation of just like, oh, you don't want to damage the place, so that way it in turn affects those below you, but you want to make sure you put benefit into it so it benefits all those below you. We have a very interdependent relationship with all of our partners below us and are very much our friends. So Kako'iwi, beautiful place too, where they're restoring food forests, and Lo'ikalo too. And then there's Pai Pai Ohe'eia, who is all the way Makai of us, and they're doing awesome work restoring that 800-year-old fish pond. Love seeing the abundance that comes from that. And I do want to note that you can see this beautiful rock wall, all placed by hand. And you can see some of those foundational stones that allow all the other smaller stones to really act as a support for all of those smaller stones to even stand up there, which is something that I will talk about later too. So before I start my presentation and really get into the nitty gritty, one of the things that I just want to note is that I use a lot of Olelo Hawai'i Hawaiian language, just on the understanding, and I'll translate it as best as I can, but some of our terms, and you find this in all linguistics, all different types of languages, but they can never be truly translated into like English or any other type of language, because there's so much deeper meaning, especially in Olelo Hawai'i. Therefore, I'm a firm believer in this. Olalo no iao, ayako olalo no kiola, ayako olalo no kamake. In language, there's life. In language, there is death. And by perpetuating our language, we perpetuate our own worldview of how we look at the world, how we see it, and how we interact with it. Therefore, I try my best to always incorporate it in these presentations that I'm able to do. So jumping into the nitty gritty. So my presentation really is going to be about Mahi and this whole concept of cultivating abundance. For those of you who don't know, Mahi is the term we use for farmers, or those who literally, will get into the actual deeper meaning, but those who cultivate this thing called ai. So going into breaking down the word, what it means, mahi, which means to cultivate, to farm. It also means a plantation, a patch. And it also means strong, energetic as a worker. And it talks about hulia mahi, which is like coming together in like almost like a political sense, but as like a big group to accomplish a greater goal. And then there's also ai, which is the food, the planting, the actual eating. And shockingly, it also includes this very interesting definition. These are pulled from the Vehe Vehe, by the way, which is an online database. But it also means to enjoy the privileges and exercise the responsibilities of rule. That's very political, very interesting, right? To have the ability of cultivation, not only of food, but of this divine right to rule almost, and exercise those responsibilities of ruling. So what does that mean? So just tying it into like some of our history, enjoying the privileges and exercise the responsibilities of rule. Many of our pasali'i, like Kamehameha Kahi, they knew and understood the importance of really caring for the land and bringing about the abundance of that in order to even sustain our people and to really connect us and drive us to this connection of aina, as well as building the capacity of our communities, because at the core of our essence is this understanding that we need to eat and supply ourselves and also bring about abundance so we don't fight over various resources. So our ali'i were very much solid in bringing back abundance and managing those practices In particular, ahupua'as were created by ali'i. In the case for Oahu was ma'ili kukahi, which is a whole other mo'olelo in itself. So when we're talking about also this privileges of rule, it's also this understanding of, that's what I was talking about and bringing about the rock wall, because there is this solid understanding that is known about as kuapapa, which is shared by Haley Kailiehu. This was in her dissertation, this graphic, where she breaks down the different class systems, or I don't like to call it class system, but that's what people call it, class systems of our people. And we understand that the Maka Ainana, those who are the most deeply rooted in the land and actually cultivated the land in many ways, whether it be our Lavai'a, those who are fishing, our Mahi'ai, or our Kalaiva'a, those who are even like making the canoes, they have to interact with the land. They're the foundational stones of all of society in a Hawaiian perspective. They're the ones deeply rooted in the Niho stones, the foundational stones in the land itself. And it's not on the understanding of just like, well, I guess it's partly on the understanding. What I'm trying to say here is that our ali'i were at the top here, like our leaders. And it's so important that our leaders really remember that. So easy are the stones of the top to tumble down. It's hard to knock down those stones who are firmly rooted. So it's a big reminder in that Hulia Mahi aspect that really the power lies with those who are the ones who build the capacity of nations. The Niho stones, in relating Mahi'ai to Niho stones, we understand that not only are they the ones that are most connected to the land, they have the most deepest intimate relationship to it. And because they're so pa'a to the aina, they're very hard to falter. When things happen, when external forces come into play, like an earthquake or whatever, the stones at the top are easy to fall, but the Niho stones usually always remain. And it's a very prophetic thing. If you talk to the people of Moloka'i about their prophecies of returning, of basically times where we eventually come back into power as a people in a political sense, talking about Kanaka Maoli. But when we're talking about the Niho stones, it's not only this power structure, that's not the big thing. The other big thing is that it's this understanding that without the foundational stones, the rest of society can't stand. So those who cultivate the land build the capacity of nations in a way that they're cultivating that capacity. They're allowing all of these different interrelationships to form amongst people. Without those who are cultivating the land, you don't really have the rest of society to be built upon. So never let anybody tell you, like as a farmer or one who works in the aina, like that's a lesser than job or anything like that. There's no more noble profession than being a mahi'ai, because we cultivate more than just food. We cultivate interrelationships of all of society and serve as the capacity for society to even stand. So again, when it comes to cultivating I is more than food. Like when we talk about aina, aina literally means that which feeds. And when we understand that there's there's so many different ways in which you can feed people. Some people are looking actually for sustenance. Others are looking for something more spiritual, emotional, looking from a place of healing. And some are seeking out knowledge. So Aina can feed you in more ways, spiritually, physically, emotionally, and intellectually. So those who are actually mahi'ai, those who are cultivating and working the land, they're cultivating more than food. They cultivate knowledge, relationships, memories, and so much more that really allow all of society to flourish in so many ways. I think I'm kind of speeding through this. I might finish early actually. But yeah, so when it comes to this whole concept of mahi'ai, cultivating abundance, we have to understand that abundance isn't only sustenance. It's all of these different levels of society, from relationships to ike, to knowledge, and all of these other various things that really allow society to flourish. So that's why I'm always encouraging people, we have to work in the land and become those niho stones that serve as the foundations for society to flourish. Because when we have that really intimate connection, we accomplish so much. And it's so hard. Like I believe as a Rick or Ikaika was saying, how there's some things that when you learn, you cannot learn it in like a four-walled classroom. You have to be in the aina to experience and learn in those traditional ways that allows us to really connect to the knowledge of our kupuna, our ancestors. So like I said, sometimes it's not even just cultivating food, it's or just knowledge, but it's also cultivating space. Sometimes you create space for people to gather, to build pilina, to build those relationships, and really to learn together and make all of these memories. And in turn, they feel that kule'ana to really heal our aina too, and really to kukua in any way that they can. So one of the definitions that our people, I used to be in Castle High School too, by the way, and I was a part of a program called Ho'olo Pio, where we're focused on growing our youth and what does that look like. So we created a Mahi statement, I believe, like 2 years ago. And for us, a Mahi by one definition is a farmer, but they are much more than that. They are a caretaker, teacher, provider, and producer all in one. They're spiritually and mentally connected to Haloa, the oldest ancestor of the Hawaiian people and the first kalo plant. Therefore, they have one of the most intimate understandings of the reciprocal relationship between the Aina and Kanaka. Mahi'ai are the soul and heartbeat of the Hawaiian people. And that's just something so important to note, that our farmers, those, or not even just the farmers, those who are maka'ainana and really just connected to the land in a way, they're constantly touching it. They have the mana'o that really, and the ike that can help holomua us and move us forward in society to take us to greater lengths and even achieve all the goals that people are trying to figure out now of how to bring back the abundance of our lands and bring back that 100% sustainable way of living. So that kind of like concludes this part of like my presentation. I kind of zoomed through it kind of fast in a way too, but it's also sort of on time because we started a little late, which is great. But does anybody have like any questions or things they want to contribute to? Like, I'm super nonchalant. Nothing? Everybody's good? Awesome. So I think our next presenter is going to be Aipono Kamoku. So I will turn it on to him. Mahalo nui for allowing me to present today.